Hello and welcome to this incredible version, this amazing episode of Crush Your Mountain Health. I want to tell you, I make it a point to make sure that I bring on those who have the most experience, those who have an incredible story of their own, and those that can impart encouragement and wisdom to all individuals who are looking to improve their health, their wellness, or increase their personal growth. And today is no exception. Let me tell you about this young lady that I have with me today. Born and raised in the Bronx, New York City, Andra Annette worked in healthcare for 35 years. She spent 13 years privately studying and mastering the endocrine system, the metabolism system, because of her own weight loss struggles. She had thyroid conditions, she had an autoimmune disorder, and she, through that, was able to master and reverse her conditions. She now works with other women to help them achieve weight loss by developing a new relationship with food, resetting the metabolism, and learning how to use nutrition to support their body and life in a body-led love. Her journey as a health coach started in 2020 while being a nurse on the front lines. She saw the impact lifestyle choices had on outcomes, and she could help more women with strategies and nutritional concepts that lead to optimum health. She has a new book that's due out on the 13th of December entitled Unstoppable Women in Healthcare, and she herself is an unstoppable woman. Let me introduce to you right now, Andra Annette, welcome to Crush Your Mountain Health.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. That was an amazing introduction. I have a book out now too, Unleash Her, that just came out a couple of weeks ago. So Unstoppable is next, and then we'll see what's going to happen from there.
The thing I love about you is, as with many of us, our journeys led us to this field of becoming a health coach. And we alluded to some of your journey. I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about your experience and what brought you to this field. Now, you were a nurse, so you were already there, but talk to us a little bit more about that.
I just felt like healthcare has become more about business than about people. And I really am that bedside nurse. I like being with the clients, the patients at the bedside. So it doesn't matter how many levels you go up in education, you get further and further away from the patient. And I had a stronger desire to get closer and closer. And I just feel like nutrition is really the way for me to go. I'm not really leaving nursing behind. I'm taking that person with me on my journey. It's such a big part of who I am. But I don't think that you can look at the scope of health without really factoring in nutrition and lifestyles. Because if you look at any disease process, it all comes back to nutrition and lifestyles.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that. And from what I've been hearing and talking to a number of doctors, they go through med school, but they are not really taught nutrition. And in fact, nowadays, is it fair to say that healthcare is really sick care instead of health care?
Unfortunately, I really have to agree with you. I feel like if you have a lot of money, that you have better outcomes than if you are broke. So I don't want to sound, I don't know a good way to say it without sounding like angry about it, but I kind of am. I think that healthcare is just really all about business. It's really not about patients anymore. And it is a business. So when I started in nursing, it really wasn't about business. It was about Florence Nightingale and giving the best care. I'm dating myself there, but that's what it was. It really was giving people great quality care and listening to the patient. And now an average doctor's appointment lasts about 17 minutes. And in that time, He's asking you what's wrong. He's drawing labs. He's giving medicine. And when does he really have the time to find out what's really going on? It's not really a long time. So you're getting charged more, but you're really getting less results when you go. And chances are they're missing things. They're just human. And there's some doctors that have a God complex, and there are some doctors that are really great and they really listen to their patient, but you never know that's what you're going to get when you go in. So, I mean, I was misdiagnosed for a really long time. And if I didn't have a medical background, I probably wouldn't be alive today.
That's so true and so sad, because in so many cases, they look at symptoms, they don't look at the underlying causes. And mind you, now I'm not a doctor. I was in the healthcare field years ago, but due to my own family illnesses and having to get caught up with being a caregiver, it didn't materialize the way I wanted it to. But what I do know is that, sadly to say, they're not given they're given to treating the symptoms. You know, if we see these problems, well, you give them a pill for this. If you see this problem, you give it a pill for this. And by the way, there's a training, doctors, you need to go to, and it's the new pill. You know, and if they have this side effect, well, you give them, treat it with this. I have one of my former clients, a young fellow, and at the age of 8, he was on 5 different medications. And
that's crazy.
The sad thing is that more than likely he was misdiagnosed initially as having ADHD. And one medication led to another, which led to another, which led to another. And he went from ADHD to suicidal, and then from suicidal to homicidal. He was 260 pounds and taking his medicine with orange soda. And at the last moment, unfortunately, he had to be put away for a little bit, but he refused all medication at that point. And he slimmed it down, and the damage was done. And he has some severe issues at this point, but still he's not doped up. He's not, he has less of the issues that he's had in the past, and he's healthier on a physical level. You see, the only challenge is now that he has to round things out psychologically. But what would have been the case if from the beginning, the nutrition, proper nutrients, proper diet, proper minerals, proper microbiome was built up and instilled in him? What would have been the change? You know, could he have avoided the challenges? And you mentioned something. You said, I get on my soapbox about this, because you mentioned the money gap. And it is sad that you have that economic structure where people who do not have the money, do not have access to adequate health care, and in fact, in many cases, live in areas where they don't have adequate food access.
Absolutely.
And, you know,
absolutely.
You know, so, you know, we talked a little bit about that, but, you know, you yourself in working with individuals, you know, sometimes in order to go through the change within the body for the better, they have to pull things out of the body first. So, you know, I do a reset cleanse, and I know that you're very familiar with elimination diet. So talk to us a little bit about that. Why is that important?
I think that because of what we've been eating, I spoke with you before about the SAD diet, the standard American diet. There's a lot of imbalances going on in our body from processed foods and sugars and poor diet that leads to a dysbiosis, you know, in the gut microbiome, and it really is connected to every part of your body. So there's a lot of talk today about leaky gut, but there's no real infinitive tests to really tell you whether or not you have it. But what leaky gut is it's like a gateway. Your gut is like a gateway, and it decides what's going to go in and what's going to stay out. So the permeability starts to weaken, whether it's age or just from the processed foods and things like that. And those things that are meant to stay in start leaking out into the bloodstream, and it leaks throughout your entire body. So it causes all different kinds of symptoms, not that just digestive systems. You know, it can appear as acne, it can appear as heart issues, it could appear as joint pain. So you really have to meet people where they're at and really see what's going on with them. You know, as a nurse, the nurse in me knows that every patient is going to represent differently. They're not going to come in with the same symptoms, and they might have the exact same disease, but their lifestyles and their nutrition is going to play a part in that. So you really have to look at your patient and see what's going on with them and ask those questions. Take a thorough assessment so that you can determine how to reverse engineer what's going on in their body. Because if it can be created, you can reverse it. So, and that's my true belief. I believe that we all have the power to heal ourselves. I went to a doctor, and when I tell you I was 257 pounds, and I looked like I was dying from the inside out. And when these doctors I worked with met me, I was 118 pounds, and then I was 257. So something was definitely going on, but nobody would, you know, answer the question, what? So I was left to figure it out on my own because I chose not to live in that body, you know. So you have to really take what's going on in their body into consideration, because not everybody has a gut health problem. It could be hormonal, but if it's a hormonal problem, it's usually gut related because they do work together. So if you have a hormonal imbalance, there's something going on in your gut. If you have pain anywhere in your body, there's inflammation throughout your body, and that started somewhere in the gut. So your body keeps responding to fight and flight and fight and flight, and it can't keep doing that. So even being in a state of chronic stress can cause disease processes because your body is not resting. It's like a heart that keeps going well over the normal rate. If it's normally 60 to 100 and it's going at 150, 150, 150, it needs that break. It's not refilling. So it's the same with your body. You're putting stress on your body that your body really can't take. And anything that's going wrong in one system affects all the other systems, because the whole body is meant to be in homeostasis and working together. So if any one thing is out of order, it's going to create disorder throughout the rest of the body because they all have to compensate to help that other system. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. You know something? I'll tell you what. Now, friends, this is not new information. You want to know how old this is? Okay, over 2,000 years ago, Hippocrates, the reported father of Western medicine, stated that all illness begins in the gut. So he also said something else very interesting. He said, treat yourself with food. Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. And isn't it amazing that there are foods out there that can heal us from the inside out? What the pharmaceutical industry does, when there's a serious issue that I need to take care of right away, yes, please, by all means. But more often than not, the various conditions that they address, they find the one thing within the food or within the herb that might be the active ingredient, and they concentrate that so that it can treat the symptom quickly. But that's where your side effects come from.
Correct.
On the other hand, when you have the natural food over time, over the proper time, and you manage not just your eating lifestyle, but your living lifestyle, your emotional balance, your your health set, your breath set, all those things.
Your spiritual, it's all together. It's all
Spirituality.
in one place.
So when you're doing that, that's when everything falls into place and you can heal yourself. Now, here's another thing. When it comes to those, when it comes to taking the steps, I notice you have a saying called, and you say, unwind, unleash, and unlock. So help us to understand how that saying helps you with your clients, and I'll tell you what I do with mine.
A lot of times they don't understand it. This is what I use to really repair my health. When I was trying to repair my own health, I did a lot of research, and there were a few people that I found that were credible. They weren't sharing what everybody else was sharing. And I said, maybe there's something to this. And I could apply it because it was evidence-based, just like the science that I knew. There was an agriculturist that I loved, and a few doctors that I loved. So unwind, if you think of your body like a big baby, it wants what it wants when it wants it. So and your body craves consistency. So when we talk about timing and frequency of meals, it's giving your body consistent timing in meals. So if you eat lunch at 2 o'clock today, you should be eating lunch tomorrow at 2 o'clock, because your body is expecting that. And the more consistent you are with your body, the more it's going to give you. So unwinding is really about giving your body exactly what it needs. Those carbohydrates, those high glycemic carbohydrates that you've been keeping from it. You know, they go on restrictive diets. What's the first thing they restrict? They restrict carbs. Your body needs carbs. Okay. So when you stop giving it carbs, it starts shutting down. It feels like you're starving it. So it actually stores the fat instead of burning the fat. So in unlocking, you're really just giving your body lots of proteins and really giving it what it needs, because you've treated it really well. You said, there, everything's okay. You got your body to relax. When you give it what it wants, it's not stress. There's a lot of foods we can eat that de-stress the body naturally. So, because we can't say, Henry, that we're not going to have stress in our life. You can't. So you have to find better ways of dealing with your stress management, food that helps unwind the body, calming yourself, the breathing, all things like that. And then unlocking is really about resetting the metabolism, you know, really eating those thyroid stimulating foods and getting your adrenal glands and your liver and your pituitary and everything to work together as one again. And then you're kickstarting everything.
You know, that's so true. I'll tell you, with my personal journey, I was able to reverse my type 2 diabetes. And, you know, just like the doctor says, I've had several doctors. There was one that would come in and he would talk with you basically just to tell you what's going wrong with you, and then give you more medicine. Then the other one was friendly and everything else, but wasn't there to really help you get well. And then finally I hit upon one doctor, but he says to me, you know, you don't need to worry about this. You know, the insulin will help you, and the metformin will help you, and you know, it's hereditary, it runs in the family. There's nothing you can do about it. So I just could not accept that. Because,
Thank God.
You know, I just couldn't. And so I took it upon myself to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I dropped all of the various foods that were not doing my body any good. And you know, I always exercised, I always worked out, things like that. But I changed the way I did that. And I focused more on both a combination of body, muscle building, as well as cardio, but in a very, very, very restricted way. There's nothing all out crazy. And I just increased the frequency. I did it, and I changed the time, and I ate on a more restricted basis. And my doctor is very good, very accommodating. He says to me after, he's like, I don't understand it. We're just going to have to say that it was just something, a blip in your system, because your numbers here are not consistent with type 2 diabetes. Okay, you just don't seem to have it. I don't know what happened. I said, I know, but the fact of the matter is that I took the steps. And the challenge is that I think, and for me, what I've noticed is that a lot of doctors have just kind of given up in trying to help them to do what they need to do. They give them the pill for their ill because many times individuals don't start with the first thing that's the most important, that's the mindset. To have the understanding that they can conceive of their wellness and commit to it, then that starts the journey. But so many individuals cannot conceive of it. And I had just this one coworker. He just went out to get the surgery, and that's the bariatric surgery. Now, he was skinny fat. He wasn't, morbidly obese. Okay, and I asked his wife, how is he doing? Because I was like, well, I know he's gonna come in there looking like The Rock now. And she says, no, he's not. He's still eating the wrong things, and he's not exercising. She was frustrated because so many of us don't think about what we really want, and that's the biggest challenge. But in the meantime, surgeons get rich, doctors get rich, and they have a steady income stream to benefit from, as well as helping the pharmaceuticals benefit themselves. So
I think they work together.
Yeah.
You were talking about metformin. Metformin really, especially as you age, they don't decrease the dosages as they should. I had a friend that was on it, and she was very erratic with her sugars and everything. And when I first suggested to her that she speak to the doctor about taking her off the metformin and putting her on something else, that a lot of the symptoms she was having, and she's a nurse. I said, a lot of the side effects and symptoms you're having are the adverse effects we tell other people about. I said, so you might really want to speak to your doctor. And he finally took her off of it. And she was much bigger, she dropped 30 pounds right away. It was physically making her ill, and she hasn't been on it in a while, and she looked like a different person. But because she started losing the weight and changing her mindset and really understanding that the medication was causing a lot of that, because sickness, when you're sick in your body, it affects your mind. It really does. It does throw your whole body off balance, So, and I sat with her, and, you had mentioned the elimination diet before. There are foods that we don't have to really be allergic to, that you have like a sensitivity to as you get older, like eating things for years. So for me, I have an intolerance to gluten, dairy, soy. Soy is one of the worst, and I get physically ill when I eat those. I don't feel comfortable after eating something that has soy in it, or even gluten. So I'm so much better without them. So the idea of elimination diet is to take either all of them out and try to incorporate one back in at a time to see which one is the offending, or to take one out at a time and see how you feel. So I took them all out, and I wasn't able to add any of them back in. I had an effect with all of them. So there are things we eat on a day-to-day basis that are making us sick.
That's fully understanding. So it's very true, especially in this day and age. I'm gonna make this one statement, then I'll ask a question if I remember it. But when we think about just in terms of the gluten, because this is something that's a fairly recent thing in terms of the proliferation of celiac disease and things that are gluten related. But isn't it true that really the reason is because of the strain of wheat that's being used in society, particularly American society today? Prior to that, there were other different species that were much better for the body, and you didn't have those issues. I can remember back in the day when I would go to the bakery, and we're talking, you're from Jersey, I'm from New York. So we know what a bakery is. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
When you go into that bakery, you had that bread that was tough and chewy and crusty, and even pumpernickel. My grandmother used to love pumpernickel bread.
My favorite.
Yes, and rye bread. And you go into the stores today, you have this soft, dewy, pillowy, mushy, and it's not the same. It's not just in the space of 50 years. So, we look at that, and we have to say that there is that challenge. And I said I was going to ask you another question if I remembered it, and I don't remember it. So I forgot,
So let me just talk about the wheat for a moment. The wheat is very highly processed. So it's being created in such bulk to manufacture it that it has a lot of fillers and a lot of processed things that we don't want in our bodies. So we are getting very different strains and God knows what else. So our foods are not really regulated the way they need to be. It's a business. Anything that is business related, you don't know that you're getting what you think you're getting. In America, when you look at a label, and I say this all the time, there's 60, 50 ingredients on it. When you go to other countries, they have 5, maybe 7. So there's something wrong with that because you can't pronounce half of the things that are on those labels. How do you cook red dye or yellow dye? How do you cook those? I don't know, but they're in our food. So you're ingesting them and they're causing effects on your body.
Absolutely. I'll tell you that's true. I worry about my 6 little girls, my son's children, because of that reason, because of the stuff that I take in. I remember the question I was going to ask you, and I got so because I understand that dairy is a challenge. But let me ask you this: when people refer to dairy, don't they specifically mean cow's milk dairy? And does the milk from other sources, and I'm not talking about plant milk, that's not milk, that's a beverage, okay? But I'm talking about goat's milk, sheep's milk. Do those things have a negative effect the way cow's milk has?
Not usually. Not usually. People that, when we talk about dairy, it is usually cow's milk. Most people are not raised on goat's milk. Like you might find that in Ireland and places like that. But it's not generally here. It's the cows, and it's not. When you think about how our cows are being raised and the conditions they're being raised in and what they're given before they go to slaughter to make them bigger, and then we're ingesting that because their blood dies with them. Do you understand? So everything they've ingested is in those cells and everything else. So, and then we're ingesting that. So we're getting that sickness from them as well.
That's so true. So the antibiotics that goes into the cow goes into the milk. The hormones that make them bigger goes into the cow, goes into the milk, and it goes into the flesh. If they're doing grass-fed, or okay, you're going to get good grass-fed food. If they're doing grains and corn that they weren't supposed to.
Corn is the worst thing in the world for you.
Yeah, you see, and yet that's the challenge, you see. So, and again, it comes down to the highly processed or highly genetically modified stuff that's out there now. And in many cases, you know, the intention was good, but the outcome is the horror. And for so many people, you know, the first thing that they have to do is to take the time to get it right here, to be determined to save themselves and their families. Is that true?
They have to be educated consumers and care enough about what they're putting in their body. You know, I get that people are busy, you know, they don't have time to prepare meals or whatever, but you can find the time now or not have the time later. It's really that simple. You can take care of your health or lose it. So I don't know if there were good intentions there, because what's being served today, actually today, you're seeing a lot better quality foods, more plant-based things out there than we've ever seen. People are getting smarter. The American public is seeing results. There are people that are more involved in their own health today, because there are people like yourself and myself out there telling people if these things are making them sick. And people want to know. People want to know they're making those informed decisions. So there's hope, right?
Yes, there's always hope. You know, it springs eternal, as they say. But now, the challenge is that so many individuals have to take the time to recognize that they are the heroes in their own story. So they have to take the action. It makes me think of the book that you have coming out, really, because you talk about being unstoppable and you refer to unstoppable women in healthcare. Could you tell us more about that? And you know, you seem to be the superhero type. So tell us more about those heroes that you work with, that are those unstoppable women that you know, and how one can aspire, a woman can aspire to be unstoppable.
Well, the book is not just people in healthcare. It's their take on healthcare. There are a lot of people that have interactions with healthcare, and that's what makes this book so special. There are women that have children that are suicidal, and how does it feel to be a mom and have to walk on eggshells and not to know what to do for your child? There are other people that are caregivers of their children. So it's different roles in healthcare, but healthcare is about asking questions. We nobody knows everything. We are human. So I would never think that I knew everything. And being unstoppable is really being smart enough that if you don't know the answers, to ask those questions and get those answers. So that you can give better care. If I would never give something to a patient if I didn't know why I was giving it. If a doctor asked me to give something and it posed a question in my mind, I'm going to go to that doctor and say, you know what, this isn't right. And I have done that, and they've gotten mad, and it's okay. This is not about your ego. This is about this patient. So it's about doing the right thing, whether other people like it or not, doing it anyway, because it's what needs to be done. There's a lot of people that, you know, I've been in healthcare a long time. Some people might not like what I'm saying, that it's a business. I'm still in healthcare. I mean, they can't rob me of who I am, but I have a right to speak the truth. I think there has been a lack of transparency in healthcare for a long time. I think that, you know, unless you directly ask those questions, you're not getting those answers. That it's about symptom management and not curative. And I think we need to focus more on curative and preventative than symptoms, because what is that about? No, you know, you don't want someone just to say, okay, you know, this is swollen, put an ice pack. You want someone to tell you why that's swollen, because you don't want to live in that pain, and you don't have to. There are answers, but there are a lot of people that have not always gotten the best advice from healthcare and they don't believe anymore. You know, if you've had bad experiences, unfortunately, you're not so quick to go back and seek that care. And there are a lot of people that don't have the mindset that they can do it because there are a lot of bad messages out there and people internalize that and feel like they did something wrong. That diet or that plan might not have worked for them because it's not a generic thing that you can give to the whole population. Everybody's individual and you got to find what works for someone else. I wouldn't go into someone else's home and say, you have to hang this here and you have to hang that there. So I'm not going to go into somebody else's body and shake it up and say, oh, this doesn't belong, get it out. You're going to sit down with them and find out what you can do to help them achieve those goals in a way that works for them so they can stick with it and create a lifestyle plan like you did, like I did.
That's so very true. And when we realize that we have the power to take our health into our hands and improve it, it opens up a sense of freedom. And that's so very vital. You see, there's hope and there's freedom. And if we make the choice, then we can move forward and take others with us, so to speak. I want to tell you, I'm studying Ukrainian right now, the language, and I love discovering things about language. And, in Ukrainian, the word for nurse is medsistra. And there's a combination of two words, sistra being, of course, sister, but honey is the word med. And it speaks to a couple of things. It speaks to, number one, the sweetness of someone who is caring enough to be there to help you get well. And of course, number two, it speaks to the fact that you're closely tied with nature and healing foods that cure the body. And so I want to say thank you so very much for being the medsistra here on Crush Your Mountain. And to that end, I ask this last question to all of my guests. Andra Annette, what does it mean to you to crush your mountain?
To live my best life, life is really short. I don't want to put off to tomorrow what I can do today. I want to be kind. If you can be anything in this world, be kind. So I want to be kind and generous of heart, generous of spirit, and really crushing the mountain is believing in myself that there's really nothing out there I can't achieve. There are things that I want, things that I desire for myself in my life. I want to know that I've always done my best at getting it and not stopping. I think that you can achieve anything in your life. If you believe it in here, it can happen out here. So that's crushing my mountain, living my dreams and smiling more, showing up for my family and my friends as the best version of myself.
Well, indeed, you are one who is getting better and better and better. And we are so happy and honored that you're with us and took this time to spend with us. And I want to encourage everyone to be on the lookout for her book. It's going to be out December 13th. Now you give us the title, the official title of the new book coming out, and then tell us about the current book. What the title of the December 13th release is?
Unstoppable Women in Healthcare.
There we go. There we go. And where can we find what is the name of the current book and where is it now?
It's on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and all stores near you. It's called Unleash Her.
Yes, yes. So, I tend to have a lot of women on this program, and each time you see another facet of the diamond. And here is no different. So once again, I want to thank you so very much for being with us here on Crush Your Mountain. And as I always say, I always tell everyone each week, and I see it say it again, don't just climb your mountain, crush through it. And folks, we will see you next time. Thanks again.
Thank you.